Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at It's Jessino. Welcome to SheKnowsArsenal Daily. Semi-daily, because you guys know I don't show up every single time, but I've shown up today. So there you go. But welcome. We're going to be talking about a couple of different things. A little bit of news updates in regards to the upcoming Manchester United game. Carrick's going to be continuing on for that match in the dugout. So no Ralph Ragnick as of yet. And Bukayo Saka is most likely going to be unavailable for that match. So we'll talk about kind of what that's going to mean for us moving forward and how that's going to affect us in this big game. And then Maguire is going to be back from suspension. So is it advantage Arsenal, or do you guys have a different idea about how that's going to affect them in terms of their defensive stability against us? So those are things that we're going to talk about. And then I have a special guest today, and I'll be asking him some questions about this Arsenal side, what he thought about the Newcastle game and what he thinks about the upcoming United game. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him in. But before I do that, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And here he is. It's Dan Potts. Hey, Dan.
Hey, how you doing, Jess? Pleasure to be on. Great to be back on She Knows Arsenal. Love the channel and love what you're doing with it. So it's a pleasure to be on again. Great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a while. So many things have, it's been a minute. Like, I can't remember the last time that you've been on, but I want to say it was last season. It had to
Yeah.
have been, right? Yeah. So we probably weren't super happy, during last season. Let's be real,
It's
but
true.
now we've moved into another season. Arsenal are just right around the corner. Well, tight on points, with West Ham for the fourth spot.
hmm
If you would have told me, after the first three games that we'd be anywhere near the top four, I would have laughed at you. But we're kind of in and about that area. I think we can all look at the teams that we played and say that when we play the lower level opposition, we tend to take care of them quite easily. Then
hmm
when you start to move up the table, we struggle really badly with the teams that are really, really good. And yeah, so it's kind of Jekyll and Hyde. What Arsenal are you going to get, and can we find some sort of like center point where we can be more competitive against better teams, even though we know that we're not the finished article. I think that's kind of the question that people are really asking. But United is a good opportunity for that, because they're not really at the tip top of their game, but it's still going to be, it's not Norwich, and it's not Newcastle. So it's going to be difficult. But for you, just a short kind of like summary of how you felt this season, from 0 points after three games, 9 goals against, no goals for, to now being close to the top four, but maybe not feeling super confident about this side still.
Yeah, and the last bit's absolutely right. I'm not confident by this side still, and I'm still not convinced by the manager. But what I can see is progress, and that's all I'm really asking for. I'm not expecting us to go and win the league, Jess, if I'm honest with you, and I wasn't expecting them to get anywhere near the top four. But I think as a kind of whole, I am expecting to get top four because that's where my head's at. I believe that's where we should be the minimum. I'm not excited and getting the party champagne out when we come fourth in the league, but by any means. But actually, that would be a massive achievement for us where we are as a club. It's not where we want to be, but actually right now, and you look at where we have been the last couple of seasons, that would be an achievement for Mikel Arteta, and that would be enough to convince me that we're seeing progress in the league under this manager. I'm still not convinced by some of the lack of style of football at times. I think sometimes this attacking play that we have lacks, and I think we saw that massively against Newcastle in the first half, that we don't really seem to be able to have this connection in the final third still. Having said that, I think what we have done in terms of the signings has been really, really good. I've been a massive fan of Ramsdale in goal, and it's definitely an upgrade on Leno. It's a position that I felt we needed at right back sorted out. And I feel like Hector Bellerin, as much as everybody seemed to love him because he was a kind of gooner at heart, he wasn't good enough for me. Defensively or going forward, there was no end product, but actually couldn't defend. Tomiyasu can kind of do both, and he's great in the air. Tavares has been a great signing, as has Lokonga, and they've played a lot more football than I think they or even the fans expected. I think certainly the only kind of key position that I'd say is one that people were particularly excited about that has been fairly underwhelming has been Martin Ødegaard. Now, I think there's a player in there. I'd just like to see him find his teammates a bit more. I think sometimes there's a lack of creativity and there's not enough goals and assists in this whole side for me. And I'm looking at people like him, Lacazette and Aubameyang to try and kind of tell us what we think is going to go forward with that wave in terms of our attack, because I think that's what's letting us down currently. As for what Mikel Arteta and Edu are doing off the pitch, I think it's been spot on. I'm a massive fan of the majority of this first team now that they've brought in. But actually, when I look at what they're trying to implement and execute on the pitch, I still have some question marks that our stats attacking wise are down with Norwich and Burnley, Jess. That's a worry for me. So we need to look at how we can improve that. And that's their kind of next step for me.
Yeah, for sure. I think I kind of shared some similar, we have some similarities there where I've liked pretty much everything that they've done in the off season, in terms of signings. And I feel confident in the direction that we're going in terms of the players and getting younger and kind of moving on from players that really just weren't serving us, the Ozils and the Mustafis and the Socrateses. And it seems like they make it a priority to get rid of these players and move them on quicker, even when the mistake happened, not so long ago. Mesut Ozil and them had kind of been hanging around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
They got rid of Willian quick, and you can bash them for kind of bringing in Willian, but also kind of say like, okay, well, they got rid of him quickly. We're looking at even somebody like Pablo Marie, who looks like he might be on his way out. We know that that was a very suspect signing as well, so I like that they're correcting their mistakes. I, like you, share some apprehension around what Arteta can do long term, because he has to improve as a manager. And I think the team will grow faster. Like, those players will get better faster than he'll become the manager than we need. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm cautiously optimistic about what's going on. But let's kind of get into the first little bit of news is that Michael Carrick is going to be in the dugout for Manchester United this on Thursday. And a lot of Gooners were worried about Rangnick being there. But as we saw, like when United played against Chelsea, even with Carrick in the dugout, it was different. They seemed to be just a little bit more cohesive. They weren't as bad as they were under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So for you, do you think that Carrick still being there gives us a little bit of a leg up, or do you still think it's going to be the same difficult task that it would be even if Rangnick was there?
I still feel it will be difficult. I'd much prefer Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to still be in charge. I think everybody would. But actually, when I saw Manchester United against Chelsea, I saw a different team selection. But what I saw was a lot more fight, and there was a lift. It was as if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was gone, and it was either we're happy he's gone and we're going to show you why we're happy, or the opposite of we were actually quite happy with him and we're going to do this one for the manager that we, show them we can actually play football. Now that game's done, they come into the Arsenal game and it's going to be a double lift, because it's going to be Rangnick's on his way and Michael Carrick is there to keep them afloat for now. But trust me, this guy's going to have a lot of say in what happens in this game. He might not be there physically, but his presence will be there, if that makes any sense, in terms of how he wants them to set up and where he wants them to move moving forward. So I see it as a kind of potential banana skin this game. If you can even call it that, it is Man United at Old Trafford. But I certainly feel like this is a time for us to have a complete opposite of what we do is what Man United don't do, if that makes sense. We're fairly solid at times at the back, unless we're playing Liverpool or Man City. But actually going forward, we struggle to score goals. Manchester United can score goals, but boy, can they concede them. They've got a dreadful back line. It doesn't matter whether it's Harry Maguire, whether it's Bailly, whether it's Lindelof, whether it's Alex Telles or Shaw. I don't believe Wan-Bissaka has ever been a good player, if I'm honest with you. I think he's just been a very average right back that would get into most Premier League sides but wouldn't take any of the top teams forward, and I think he's proven why that was a bad signing for Manchester United. David De Gea has always got a mistake in him, so this is a team that can be got at. But my worry, Jess, is that this lack of attacking style, and listen, we can score goals, Arsenal Football Club can score goals, don't get me wrong, but I believe there is a lack of creativity at times, and sometimes there's a lack of killer pass and a lack of killer finish. So that does worry me going into this game. But Michael Carrick being on the sideline will be trying to prove himself, because Rangnick is going to want to turn to him when things or if things don't go to plan. So Michael Carrick's got to prove to Rangnick basically that he's the right man to be alongside him. And by losing 5-0 to Arsenal, that wouldn't be a good for him long term. So he needs to win this game. This is going to be difficult, but I feel like I would rather have Ollie, but I would rather it not be the first game that Rangnick's in charge, because I think that is like the new manager lift as such. So I'm quite happy for Carrick to be there as opposed to Rangnick right now.
I kind of agree with that. I do think that the biggest, it's not so much about Ragnick for me. I think in this game it was going to be difficult if Ollie was gone, period. Even if they had
Agreed.
interim, it doesn't matter. Like Manchester United, as bad as they can be, if they have a little bit of confidence, they're a very dangerous team going forward. And I think they have similar level of attacking threat that Liverpool and Chelsea and Man City have. They just don't have the structure in behind. So when it comes down to it, I think it's more about who scores first. Like if we score first, they may capitulate or we'll be able to get the draw if we give up something late. But if they score first, I'm not sure I've seen an Arsenal team come back like that. You know, just a couple of times, not to win. I don't think we've ever come back to win. Like I think that's a stat that's out there. If we have, it's been like one time, but or in the FA Cup, but is like Stamford Bridge away, you know, well, obviously if it's Stamford Bridge is away, but Chelsea away, we came back to draw. We went down against Crystal Palace, we came back to draw. But you know, if I don't see a back and forth type of match, and I just feel like if we go down, we'll really struggle, and they may have the crowd behind them, and you know, just a little bit of confidence will go a long way for a team that was great. Like they were very underperforming. So I can't say that I'm confident, but I think things would have to go damn near perfect for us to get a result. And if you offered me a draw right now, I'd probably take it, if I'm honest, you know,
Fair
but
play.
yeah. So yeah, but I think Carrick at the wheel is pretty much similar to anybody but Ollie at the wheel. Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Cristiano Ronaldo could be at the wheel at this point. Like it doesn't matter. Like they will be a better team, and so we have to be on point. Maguire is going to be back, and I would imagine that he would start. I mean, he's the captain of the team, and so you know, what have you made of the criticism about him? Like, I guess how I view him is just he's not quite as good as people make him out to seem, but he's also not as bad as people make him out to seem, but he's not a captain. And it's weird to me that they allow him to be captain when clearly Bruno Fernandes is the captain of that club. But what have you thought of Harry Maguire and the response to him, like putting fingers in his ear to, like, you know, against Andorra when he scores the goal and then just to turn around and get a red card? Do you think a club of Manchester United's stature should have a captain that doesn't really have the same maybe backbone as like a Roy Keane? Like, shouldn't they have bigger characters in there? Or do you think Maguire has it? He just needs another manager or something?
I've never rated this guy. Honestly, I didn't understand the obsession with him, and I thought 80 million was an absolute joke. So when he was at Hull, sorry, he was a young lad coming through at Sheffield United, and everyone was talking about this guy. And I thought, if he's gone to Hull from Sheffield United, is he going to be a top player? Like maybe he will, you know, because sometimes that happens. You know, Andrew Robertson went there and he's gone on to Liverpool, but Harry Maguire went to Leicester, and everyone was raving about how fantastic he was. And since he's gone, Leicester haven't missed him for a start. Manchester United have not improved with Harry Maguire at their centre as their centre half. He doesn't look like a captain. This is going to sound really cruel and out of order, but he's not a very intelligent player or person, in my opinion. I've seen his interviews. He doesn't look to me like showing any leadership qualities. He's more of a robot, comes out and says what he's supposed to say, and then gets back to the dressing room. He doesn't look to me like that rock of a defender. He's always got a mistake in him. And I don't think he's got that running style that you need. If Harry Maguire is running, if you're past Harry Maguire and he's chasing you ain't scared. You've done him. You've got past him. I like athletic defenders that look like somebody. Like I can understand why they've got Raphael Varane, because he's a little bit like that. You know, he's solid as a rock. He's a colossus of a defender. When he's fit, he is very, very pacey. Now, I like both of our centre halves. I think we've got a good pairing in Ben White and Gabriel, and I think Gabriel has been our best player this season by quite some way. I think he's been absolutely outstanding in every single game. And you think he was 30 million? Harry Maguire cost 50 million pounds more. In fact, he's cost as much as Ben White and Gabriel. And I don't think just because he's English that he was ever worth that. Now, with him coming back into this side, is it a positive or a negative for Arsenal? I don't think it's either, Jess, because it's either him or Bailly. They both got mistakes. It's either him or Lindelof. They've both got mistakes. I think whoever they play, literally out of those three, we've got a chance. And of course, our strikers need to turn up, but they're going to gift us chances because they're not good enough technically. They're not good enough as a pair, whoever they play. And I don't actually think that they have the communication or leadership qualities moving forward. I look at the leaders at Man United, it's Ronaldo and Fernandes for me. They're the two leaders at the club. It's not a Luke Shaw or a Maguire or a Fred or a McTominay or a Rashford or Greenwood. They're all just the bit part players. I don't even know that half of them are good enough, if I'm honest with you. I've always had question marks over Rashford being 150 million like Mbappe. Who would you rather have? Luke Shaw as a left back has got a hangover from England. He looks dreadful. I know he's injured now. Maguire, likewise, hangover from England. I don't know anyone, Jess, who played for England in the Euros that's having a good season. I don't know anyone. So
Fred,
I look at it.
that's so funny. You mentioned Fred, and I just had a vision of him trying to chip Mendy in that last game that they played. That was so funny.
The worst Brazilian I've ever seen.
He's on giving.
The guy is unbelievably poor, and they paid 50 million for him as well, I believe. So I don't get why they keep playing him, but hopefully he keeps playing because it's hilarious watching him try and play football. So I hope that he plays on Thursday. But for me, Harry Maguire, I feel like it's a player that is going to start and probably captain the side, and I don't think it's bad news for Arsenal at all because he could be got at.
Yeah, definitely. He's just somebody that I think he's just like I would say he falls in that good category. Like he's good. Like I'm not going to sit here and say that he's like absolute crap. He's good. But he was never like what people were making him out to seem. And I know that he scores goals in England and all that kind of stuff, but like is it that hard to score against Andorra? Like not really. Like, so it's kind of like, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think I agree. I think all their center backs are pretty much similar. They all have a mistake in them. They're all either Bailly's rash, but the other two are slow. So Maguire being there will only help us, so we'll definitely see what happens with that. But last but not least from like just like kind of like the news is we still don't really know what's going on with Bukayo Saka, but we know that he had some scans done on a thigh injury that he sustained against Newcastle after scoring a wonderful goal. And I don't know about you, but I feel like he is somebody that will struggle without massively. I think what he did against Newcastle is what you expect Aubameyang to do, to come out of the dressing room after halftime, after the team is not playing very well, and take the game by the scruff of the neck and get us on the right track. Like, I don't really see that from a lot of our senior players. I see it from ESR sometimes, and I really see it from Bukayo. So I know that he doesn't have a lot of goals in him at the moment, but he has the impetus and the kind of like mindset to kind of get us going. And so when I see that, he had to get scans and he may or may not make it for this game, we don't really know. Everything's really quiet. How big of a blow is that to Arsenal in terms of like the United game and then moving forward? Do you think that there's something that we could do to make up for it? Or do you think Bukayo's like personality and what he adds to the team is almost irreplaceable with the group of players that we have at our disposal at the minute?
So there's a couple of options. Moving forward, I think this Arsenal side is actually getting stronger in terms of strength of depth each season. Essentially because we're buying correctly in the transfer market. I think with Bukayo Saka, although he's not the most creative player, he's probably one of our most threatening players going forward, and he brings a lot of others into play. And I said on the pod the other night that I would love to see Saka and Smith Rowe playing alongside each other a lot more. I think when we play them right and left, we just take them away from out the game from each other, and they don't get to link up as much. And I think that when you saw the goal against Newcastle, where they did get that opportunity to link up, we scored from it. So Saka's going to be a miss. I don't expect him to play against Manchester United or Everton, if I'm honest with you, because the way that he went down, it looks like a muscular thing where I imagine he'll miss 2 or 3 games. So it is going to be a blow. However, we have got options. Now, the option I think we're going to go with, I think we're going to revert back to this 4-4-2 with Lacazette playing as a kind of second striker. I expect Martin Ødegaard to come in and play on the right-hand side. That isn't what I would do, but I expect that to happen. I don't think Pepe has a long-term future at this club, and I quite like Pepe. He's not one of my favourite players, but I do believe he gets a lot of unfair criticism when his stats don't lie. He scores almost goals, scores all our goals, and sets all of our goals up. But can be frustrating at times to watch. So I don't expect him to come in. And the only other option is Martinelli, who I thought was outstanding when he came on for the half-hour performance against Newcastle, and I think it was well-deserved. You know, I've been a massive, massive fan of this guy, and I've keep slating this manager for not rating him and not playing him and not giving him a chance. And when he has given him a chance, it's been for 5 minutes, and when he has given him a chance in full 90-minute games, it's been in the League Cup against Wimbledon and Leeds, and people are raving about why he's not doing it with the likes of El Neni and Eddie Nketiah either side of him. So I'd like to see personally him come into this first setup a lot more, and I feel like that's the option I would go with. Martinelli on the right-hand side is not something that I think is his actual long-term position, but certainly when he came on, he linked up well with Tomiyasu, and I think going forward, his movement was outstanding against Newcastle. He was coming into the centre a lot more, and I truly believe, Jess, that this guy is outstanding, and I think he's a future striker. I think his ceiling, I've said it, and people laugh, but I'll stand by it. And it might be an unpopular opinion, but I think Martinelli's ceiling is higher than Saka and Smith-Rowe's, because I think he can do a lot more on the ball. I think he can play in a lot more positions, and I think he's definitely better in terms of his end product than either Saka or Smith-Rowe. And the stats have proven it. When he was given a chance, he scored 10 goals for Unai Emery. Yes, it was against Europa League teams and League Cup teams, but it doesn't matter, does it? You score against the people you're being put in front of, and he was doing that. Then his injury probably affected him, to be honest, and the manager gave him that kind of long-term out. I personally feel like now is his time. With the African Cup of Nations coming up, he's got an opportunity now with a couple of players around him that are going to be going to that competition. He's going to have some opportunities, and I think he's going to take them. And I'm really excited to see a potential, when Smith-Rowe came in on Boxing Day last year and everyone was raving about him, I think that's going to potentially happen for Martinelli, and we're going to see him in the first team a lot more than people think. Because of that performance at Newcastle, I think it's going to spur him on. So if it was my opportunity to replace Saka, it would be with Martinelli. I just feel like he will use him from the bench again, Mikel Arteta, and go with Martin Odegaard on the right.
Yeah, no, I think that the only option is really to bring Martinelli in to continue to at least have the same level of threat. It's a different threat. Saka and Martinelli are not similar in the way that they threaten teams, but they're threats, and that's what we need. I don't know how he gets around playing Martinelli against Manchester United. I don't see a combination of Odegaard and Lacazette and Aubameyang and ESR that makes sense unless you're really trying to galaxy brain it. And I think Pepe is so far down the pecking order that I don't think he doesn't come in against Newcastle and then starts against Manchester United away. So for me, it's kind of like you kind of have to play Martinelli. I don't see really a way around it. If Saka doesn't play, personally, I think you have to play Martinelli off the right. Then, I guess for me, I'd rather Arteta choose between Aubameyang and Lacazette. I don't think I get that it works sometimes against lower level opposition, but I think we take away some of our build-up play and our ability to pass between lines and stuff when you have a striker playing number 10 and then Aubameyang. It's just weird, So for me, I'm looking at it like Arteta needs to figure it out. But one person that needs to be in that starting lineup is Martinelli. I think it'd be a mistake not to, but that is the play. I think that is the play. There's about 81 of you guys watching. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And I'm going to ask Dan what he thinks, or let's see, one big thing that you learned about Arsenal against Newcastle. We'll start off with that one.
Sure. So I think there's a few things, to be honest. Attacking play I've mentioned. I think Aubameyang deserves a mention. But I think the obvious one that everyone's talking about, the one thing I've learned, is that it is going to be a very good decision, yet a very difficult decision for Mikel Arteta to make the decision at left back if both players are fit. And I think that's the biggest thing I've learned, is that the confidence that he's shown, the manager, I've got to give him some praise, because I'm not always one that does give him praise. But actually, when you look at what he's done with Tavares and Lokonga in that fixture, it was the right thing to do. Because Nuno Tavares is a perfect game for him to bounce back at Newcastle. It's a great opposition to play up against. Lokonga, likewise, thought both of them were exceptional. Partey looked a lot fitter, so I think that helped Lokonga. But actually, when you stick to Nuno Tavares, what he's done moving forward, it's an absolute beast, right, of a player. He's got an engine, he's powerful, he's got pace, he can link up play, he looks comfortable on both feet. The only thing I've seen that he can't do is shoot. Everything else he seems to be okay at. So when I look at the situation of who starts against Manchester United, people are going to rant and rave when I say this, I would go with Kieran Tierney. If he's fit, that is. If both players are fit. If one of them's not fit, then obviously Tavares comes in. But for me, Kieran Tierney is going to provide us the experienced head that we need, the defensive solidarity that we need, and he's not going to go flying down the left-hand side, not knowing what's going on behind him. Now, against Liverpool, we saw Nuno Tavares keeping Mo Salah pretty quiet for the best part of 30 minutes, and as soon as he let that ball go, he crumbled. That pass was awful when he knows it. So, for me, I think it has to be Kieran Tierney if he's fit. But, and I will say this, Jess, if he's not fit, I'm not sitting there complaining, because this kid has proved that he can come and do well and do a job. And I am so done with the Kolasinac's of this club, and Cedric's having to play there, and Saka, when he's, an option, has to play at left back, so that takes him out of the forward side. I think when you look at what we've had there in the past, this kid is just what we needed in the summer, and he's come in and proven why he should be given a shot now. So that's the one thing I learned, is that I didn't really see Tavares playing much this season, because I actually thought personally that Kieran Tierney might have had a season injury-free with only playing one game a week. Again, the kid's made of glass, and it doesn't seem like it can happen. So he is my favourite player, Kieran Tierney. I love what he brings to the club. I love his mentality. I love his ability, and I love the desire and attitude that I see. But Nuno Tavares might just get the nod here, so it's going to be an interesting decision, Jess.
Yeah, for sure. Like I was just talking to my friend about this before the game, before we got on, and I personally don't feel I don't feel the same anxiety that I felt last season whenever I saw Kieran Tierney just like pull on a muscle or stop running or fall on the ground, because we know we have Nuno Tavares, to step in. Personally, for me, Kieran Tierney is still the number one left back. I don't think he could be one of our most consistent performers, for 12 to 16 months, amongst really bad players. I mean, he's played in back lines with, I hate to say this, but he's played in the back line with some not so great players, Pablo Mari and Rob Holding. They're fine. But Kieran Tierney is another level, and he carried us, him and Saka, for a big chunk of last season. Now that the team is playing better and Tavares is kind of benefiting from playing in a team that's in good form, in a back line that's really clicking, I think people are forgetting about how good Kieran Tierney actually is. And it's sad because one minute he's your captain and the next minute he's out. And I think it's great that we can rest him. And would I like to see him against Manchester United? Yes. Would I be sad if Nuno played? No. But do I think that we need to slow down and remember how good Kieran Tierney is? Absolutely. And so I think it's a difficult decision for Arteta to make. The right decision was to continue to play Tavares after you made that huge mistake. I think you pull him out there, a young player, you might damage his confidence, but he has to figure out a way to keep Kieran Tierney's confidence up as well and keep him competitive in this team. So that's the next part of this. But I agree with you that Arteta did make the right decision to keep Sambi and Tavares in and play them against Newcastle. So you're right about that.
I think what's important as well, Jess, sorry, just to come in on that, is I think people need to understand that we do need a squad. We can't have 11 players. We need to actually have competition for places. And I'd love Kieran Tierney and Tavares' kind of dilemma to be in every single position in that first 11. And we're not there yet, but we need to be. That's the level we need to be at. So I think sometimes some of the section of the fan base get really angry about it and say, Tavares, he's going to end up leaving. No, this is what football should be about. You don't see Manchester City's midfielders getting really annoyed and leaving every year, do you? They all stay and fight for their place. Mahrez, Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, Kevin De Bruyne, Sterling. They've got so many. None of them have left. Now, listen, a couple of them might decide that they want a new challenge. They want to play football. But the last 3 years, they've all stayed there pretty happy under Pep because they're all fighting for their positions. That's what we need to be at. That's the level we want to be at. That's not going to get there in the next few months, of course. But maybe we'll get there in the next few years. And this is the start of it. And I feel now we do have some competition for places. We've spoken about Martinelli, Martin Odegaard, Saka, Smith Rowe, Nuno Tavares, and obviously Kieran Tierney. We need that in every single position. So that's the honest way I see it. I remember when we went unbeaten, and I know it's a completely different era and a completely different Arsenal side, and I wish we had something similar. But I don't remember Ray Parlour, Gail Clichy, Kanu, Wiltord, Edu all leaving. I remember them staying there and fighting for their place. And do you know what? They were massively important to a lot of our fixtures to help us go unbeaten. Because you don't go unbeaten with 11 players. You go unbeaten with a squad. And I think the only thing I can sort of see similar to that era, not in terms of quality, I wish, is that there was the obvious 11 we had there. Everybody knew what the 11 was going to be in the unbeaten season. I think everybody probably knows what this 11 is going to be now. And that's the first time I can say that under Mikel Arteta. I never thought he knew his best 11. And now that he's had the 4 or 5 transfer windows that he's had, naturally he's going to have players that he knows who to pick now and knows that this is his team. So I feel now we have a first 11, and I think that's important.
Do you think that some of this will become an issue eventually? So I think there's a couple of things to touch on here. Is that I think the reason why it's shocking us so much with the Kieran Tierney thing is because he's a fan favorite and he's the first player to have true competition in his place where we can see it actually being a struggle. When you think of who you want to have competition for their place, you're thinking the first player you're probably thinking of is Granit Xhaka. Like, you want him to have somebody actually battling for his position because he's never had it. Not Kieran Tierney. Kieran Tierney's a fan favorite. He's our captain, so I think it's a little bit of that fight between him being a fan favorite and him being the first player to kind of have somebody really knocking down the door to take their position. I think it's a little bit of that, because Odegaard and ESR is different because you can always play ESR as a left winger and kind of keep them both happy. You can't do that with Kieran Tierney and Tavares, but the most important part, I think, about keeping it competitive is also we need to be playing in a lot of different competitions to keep people happy. So not being in Europe is okay this season if we're able to push. But if we don't get into Europe this season for some reason, I think it will become an issue if players aren't getting significant playing time, because playing against Wimbledon in the whatever round, that's not good enough, for some of our players. So I think keeping that in mind, as well as that it's important for Arteta to make sure he gets us into those competitions so he can keep that competitive atmosphere and keep people happy, so it's a little bit of that. But I want to ask you, what big question do you want answered against United for this Arsenal team? Do you have something that you feel like this is what I need to see them do so that, I feel like we're moving in the right direction, or, this is the question that I want answered during this game? What do you think?
Show me that we can score goals against our rivals. Because we did against Spurs, but were they really a rival at the time? They had a manager they didn't want, and they were terrible. They haven't improved much, by the way. Leicester, we scored goals against them, but were they really a rival at the time? Do you know where they were in terms of their league position? So I think across the season, they probably both are. Spurs and Leicester, but at the time they were poor. Now this Manchester United side have just starting to pick up under the new regime that they're going to have, so they are going to be our rivals 100% come the end of this season. Now I want 3 points. I know you said you'd be happy with a point. The reason I want 3 is they're not playing well enough for me to be worried about them taking 3 points off of Arsenal. Now I'm always worried that Arsenal are going to drop points because I don't have the confidence in this side, but the way that we're playing and the way United are playing, this should be 3 points for Arsenal Football Club going to this team at Old Trafford. We won there last year and we were a lot worse positioned last year than we are now, so they haven't changed the team too much. We have. The players that they've brought in, they're not really playing. I mean, I expect to see some of them, but they're not all there. Varane's injured. Ronaldo, we don't really know what's going to happen with him. Sancho seems to be playing now, but this is our first game I've seen in a long, long time. So I want to see 3 points. The question I want answered is, can Aubameyang and Lacazette score goals against Manchester United? They didn't manage to score it against Man City and Liverpool and Chelsea. But can they do it against Manchester United? Because I'm happy to accept that those 3 teams I've just mentioned are probably not just easily the 3 best teams in this league, but probably in the world at the moment. I'd probably put Bayern Munich in that level, in that bracket. They're the best 4 teams in the world currently. I don't see PSG, Juventus, Real Madrid, Barcelona, or any of the Milans up there with them at all at the moment. So for me, in the Champions League, Liverpool, City, Chelsea and Bayern Munich, I think are going to get right to the end if the draw goes their way. So I'm not looking at them, but I am looking at West Ham and I am looking at Man United. I am making sure that we're looking down when it comes to Leicester, Everton, Villa, Spurs, Wolves, Leeds. Those teams are below us. So West Ham, Man United and Arsenal, I feel, are fighting for this 4th place. So this is a bigger game for me than Anfield, because I'm not really bothered about how we can compete with Liverpool, City and Chelsea, because I know we can't. But I feel personally that we can compete with Man United and West Ham. So that's the biggest thing I want them to show me, is show me that you can not just compete with them, but that you can beat them and score goals against them. Because at the moment, I don't think we're scoring too many, and the goal difference proves that with -2 or whatever it is. So let's get into the pluses very, very soon. And the best way to do that is to take 3 points at Man United, which I believe we can do.
Yeah, for sure. I guess for me, like, the big question that I want answered is can Arsenal win a game or get a good result when we don't have the perfect settings? So essentially, can we win or get a result if the team doesn't just fall apart? Can we
Mm,
win or get a result if we don't score first? Can we win and get a result if we go down, then we score, then we go down, then we score? Like that's I want to see us be able to compete for 90 minutes even if things don't go right. In my mind, when we play, it's either everything goes perfect, we keep them 0-0 for a while and then we score sometime in the second half, or we score a couple goals really early and then just stave them off for the rest of the game, maybe give up one goal, maybe none,
mm,
or we just get killed. There has to be some sort of in between where if we were to score and then Manchester United were to score, we could push to get another goal. If they scored 2 goals and we had 0, we could still push to try to at least draw the game away from home. That's what I want to see. I want to see if it's not perfect conditions, can we compete, or do we have to kind of come out of the gates, surprise them? I don't think they're going to be surprised that we like to come out of the gates quick, but
mm.
surprise them, get away from them, and then just sit back and protect. I don't want to see that. Like, I mean, I would if we won, but like, I still don't think it's going to go that way because I envision them scoring at least one goal. So, yeah, I think that's kind of what I want to see is if it's not perfect, can we still compete? Tony says, did either of you guys see the Chelsea game? Chelsea ripped them apart and should have won by 3-0, but we're not Chelsea. I think that's like the main thing for me is that, of course, I saw that. I know Manchester United is not great right now. They're not.
Mm,
And they're not going to
mm.
have new tactics from Rangnick like perfect from minute one. But I think that they're a decent side. Think about how the Leicester match went. Leicester is a good team that wasn't playing well. That we got up 2-0 and then after that we kind of sat back and they really kind of peppered us after that.
Mm,
Man United could do that too. They could give up a couple goals and then pepper us, but they're better attacking wise than Leicester is.
mm.
So I think it's more of a that kind of game than a just rip them apart because we're better than them. And again, we're not Chelsea, so I don't see them giving us respect like they did Chelsea. I don't see them sitting back like they did against Chelsea. I think they'll try to attack us and press us. What do you
Mm.
think about that? Do you think that we should look at the Chelsea match and kind of look and see like, okay, this week Man United team, or should we kind of take it back a little bit because we're not on their level?
I think we should look at how Man United performed against Chelsea, but I don't think we need to look at too much about what Chelsea did because we're not that team. And although I don't actually believe Chelsea will win this league, and everyone seems to think they've won it already, I do believe they're going to be there or thereabouts, like I've just said previously. So I think with Man United, we all know their weaknesses. We all know their back five is going to have mistakes in it, and if their midfield is Fred and McTominay, then you put somebody like Partey on Fred, and he dominates him. So where I believe we can get caught out is by their pace and their power up top. And they have got players that can hurt us. Greenwood, Rashford, Sancho, Ronaldo, even Cavani if he plays. They've got some options there. And when Bruno Fernandes is on fire, he's one of the best. We haven't seen the best of Bruno Fernandes for a while now. And I think it's time for him to start getting lifted. And something like this could lift him. I think he's a very good player. But it's a position that I don't feel has quite worked. That midfield for Manchester United is so the balance is all wrong. Whether Pogba plays in there or not, they're so in need of a defensive midfielder that's an upgrade on what they've got. They're so in need of it. I was amazed they didn't get that position sorted in the transfer market with a Declan Rice or even a Calvin Phillips coming into that mould, because I really felt like that was a potential option for them and something they needed to improve. So midfield we can dominate. And we can certainly get at their back line. It's all about how we defend, and we have been doing a lot better in that. I think Arteta can say that he's improved us at the back. And I think that it's quite obvious how he's done it. He's bought 5 new players. I don't think he's different in his terms of his coaching or anything like that. I just think he's said, I don't like these defenders, so I'm getting 5 new people to come in. And that's what he's done. So I like the situation going into it, to the fact that they're going to have a back line that we can get at. It's all on what happens up top. And we have a very bad record in the last few games of goals for Aubameyang and Lacazette, so that needs to change.
My stomach was like growling. It was so
Was that your
loud.
stomach? Really?
Yes. It was
I
like
wondered. I thought there was a dog in here or what's going on?
no. I'm starving. Like, oh, why have I done this to myself? But no, I hear you that it's just one of those where it's kind of like I do look at what other people have been able to do against them, and I do think that we can have a similar effect, but not to the same levels because we're just not as clinical as other teams. We don't have as much threat. So it's going to be interesting to see how things unfold. But now that we're kind of talking about Aubameyang and Lacazette, we can kind of get into our quick fire because that's one of my first questions.
Oh, okay.
Lacazette or Aubameyang? I mean, if you have to choose between one or the other to play against United, which one are you choosing? Personally, I think you need to choose, but maybe you feel like both should play. But if you have to choose, which one are you choosing against Man United?
So I would play them both. But if you said to me, who can I have, Lacazette or Aubameyang? The reason I'm going to go with Aubameyang is because he is more of the goal scorer than Lacazette. I like Lacazette's link-up play. I think it's better. I think he can hold the ball up. But Aubameyang is one of those players that scores goals. And although he hasn't done it in the last few games, his goal-scoring record is still better than Lacazette's. And we need goals, Jess. If I had him in front of goal, I would have more faith in Aubameyang. And it's hard for me to say that when he missed one of the worst chances I've ever seen against Newcastle the other week. But I will say this, he's always done that. He's always missed chances. I remember against Chelsea away, booted it over the bar for an open goal. I remember him missing penalties. I remember him missing one-on-ones. He does that. The difference is he scores 30 goals a season, so no one says anything about it. But when he doesn't score, that's what people talk about. So I feel personally that I would go with Aubameyang, but it doesn't mean I play them both. But if you were to ask me one or the other, it would be Aubameyang. Two reasons. One, I think he's better in front of goal. And two, he's still at the club. Lacazette's going, man. He's leaving. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what he does do. But I think both of them will play.
Yeah, I think both of them will play. I prefer they not. But if I had to choose, I think I'd go Lacazette, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm not as big of everybody knows I'm not a big Aubameyang person, like
Okay.
he's great, I get it. But I just have never I've always had this weird thing where I'm just like, oh, is he running hard enough? Is he pressing hard enough? What is he doing up there? He's walking, and so you just have some players that you like more than others. He's not my favorite. I don't like either of our center forward options, but I would play. It really just depends, but I think I'd go with Lacazette, but that's just me. Aubameyang needs to get his act together. Okay, we need him to score. He has 4 goals in the league, and I know that it's kind of like, well, he doesn't get as many chances because he has always missed. That is 100% true.
Yep.
That he's always missed chances. The thing is that he got way more, so he would make one of the 3 that he had. Now he's getting 1.5 shots or 1.5 chances a game, and he's missing the one chance that he would always miss. So for me, it wasn't so much that he missed that wide open kind of chance against Newcastle that was kind of like funny. It was more just feeling like there was a couple of different opportunities, like the one that ESR slipped in for him. I think, although it might have been a little bit, it wasn't a perfect pass. I think Aubameyang a couple of years ago gets that and chips it over the keeper. I think that dynamism and that spark that he had, like even in the FA Cup, final, he doesn't have that right now. So maybe he just needs a goal against a big team to kind of get him going. But we need him. We need all of our players to start doing something because I'm looking at him and I'm like, oh my gosh, Aubameyang, you're done. So yeah, that's just kind of how I feel about it. But and I hear you. Kind of keeping on the same trajectory. What's most important for us to address in January? So let's say that we're close to the top 4. There's one position that could help us get there potentially, and we can address it in January. What would you prefer, a central midfielder or a striker?
So we need both in January, but again, it's like Lacazette and Aubameyang, isn't it? We need both of them to play. I'm not really answering these, but what I will say is that if you said to me, what do we need, a centre forward or a defensive midfielder? I think Partey and Lokonga could probably get us through this season together. And Granit Xhaka is obviously going to be in the mix again, unfortunately, when he comes back. A player I hate, but we need a striker. We need a striker. The reason we need a striker is because Lacazette and Eddie's contracts run out. Balogun's in desperate need of a loan in January and probably for next season if we're not going to see him as a starter. That leaves us Aubameyang and Martinelli. Martinelli is playing everywhere but centre forward, and Aubameyang is the only option that we've got for goals at the moment in terms of a centre forward. So we need that player to come in. Now, I don't know what who the player's gonna be. No idea. It could be someone that we're not even linked with at the moment. But I know that El Nesri's been linked from Seville. I know that Vlahovic has been linked from Fiorentina, Alexander Isak from Real Sociedad, Dominic Calvert-Lewin from Everton, even Ollie Watkins at Villa. I feel we need two central midfielders and two central strikers over the next two windows. So if you're asking me what one position we need to strengthen this January, it would be a centre forward. And if you was to ask me what player we should go and get, it would be Vlahovic from Fiorentina, because he's killing it 2 seasons now. This season he's absolutely killing it. He's a 22-year-old centre forward that has the man mountain and hold up play and flick on play of Giroud, but has a one-on-one confidence going through on goal, which I never had with Giroud. So for me, I think it's got to be somebody like him. It's got to be somebody who's a big old school number 9 centre forward that can do everything that Lacazette and Aubameyang can do combined. And I think Vlahovic is that. He gets goals, he holds the ball up well, he flicks it on well, he links up the play. And I think that you've got both attributes of those strikers in Lacazette and Aubameyang in that player. So that would cost you 70 to 80 million, but I think it would be worth it, and it would definitely push us on to a top 4 place. So that's my answer, Jess.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. I think I just need that midfield to be taken care of. It's just glaring at me, and it's like, I'm not good. I'm not good. Like when I look at our midfield, it hurts me so much. I'm just like, oh, it's so rank. And I love Sambi and I love Thomas Partey, but we need two midfielders. Like we
We
need a
do.
number 6 and we need an attacking 8. Like that's so clear, and it's not one or the other, it's both and quick.
Mm.
We could solve so many of our issues if we brought in like a Zachariah and an Awar and just called it a day. It would
I
solve
think
so many
that's a
of our
great shout.
issues.
I think that's a
Yeah,
great shout.
and it's cheap. Like I mean, cheap for, like as it's not cheap for me. Like I couldn't afford it, but like obviously, like it's cheap. Like Zachariah could be on a free, and Awar would only cost you 30 million. But we'll see what the club does. But
I mean, Frank
I
Kessie
think,
is another option from AC Milan. I think
yeah,
he's free in the summer as well. I believe he would be a great. I think the Basuma thing's done. I don't know what's going on in his personal life either, so I think that's done.
yeah, I don't
But
know.
for me, I think that's a great shout in terms of two players. I've always been a massive fan of Houssam Aouar and Frank Kessie. I think both of those would be a massive, massive plus for Arsenal coming through the door. But I'm a big Vlahovic fan, so I'll go for a centre forward. And Arteta hasn't bought a forward yet, has he? So it's going to
Well,
be
he brought in
interesting.
William. No, but
Oh,
he didn't. He
yeah,
hasn't bought
that
anybody. But
worked.
no,
That
I hear
worked.
you. He hasn't touched. He hasn't touched like really the attack. Really, Odegaard is kind of in there, but it's not really his guys yet. So I would imagine that he wants something different when it comes to like the Vlahovic and the striker situation. We kind of talked about this yesterday on the channel. Because somebody was like, we need a world class striker. No world class strikers come to Arsenal, and there's only about 5 in
Mm.
the world. So when we're talking about that next level down, it's going to be somebody who's probably a little bit unproven. We're going to have to pay a little bit too much for. So for me, it's more the profile has to be right. You mentioned and Nasiri from Sevilla, Calvert-Lewin has been mentioned, Vlahovic has been mentioned, as well as Alexander Isak, even Osimhen. I think they're all risky. I think every single one is risky in its own
Mm.
way. Personally, if Aubameyang was firing a little bit more, I would go after Isak, even though he's more raw, because I feel like he has the all-around game that we probably need. But since it looks like Aubameyang might be somebody that we need to push back a little bit and bring in somebody a little bit more done and ready to go, I could see us going after Calvert-Lewin because Everton is trash
Mm.
right now and he probably
Yeah,
needs a move.
same. And he's an
But
Arsenal
I
fan. So,
but I question his like I don't think his ceiling is very high. I don't think his
mm.
ceiling is very high. So I think whatever striker we get, it's going to be a risk, but we need one. I don't see us addressing it in January because there's somebody named Lacazette standing there like, hey, I'm still here. But a midfielder maybe, but we'll see what happens. But you basically said we need both, but a
Oh yeah, I
striker,
think that's
you
obvious.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um Cliff, thank you so much for your super chat. I really appreciate it. Cliff says, hello, all. Can't see us beating Man United. They have a real gaffer and a great squad. And if they gel, it will be like Liverpool 3-1 Man United. So I think that's what you're saying. So Rangnick is not there yet, but I hear what you're saying. I think it just takes them I just think they need a little bit of confidence, like to be a better than what they were a couple weeks ago. And I think it's going to be difficult, but I think we can get a result. I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility, but we also thought we could get a result against Liverpool, and we saw how that unfolded. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So my last quick fire for you is going to be about Thomas Partey. Do you
hmm
think his form is more due to him not being the type of player, not being good enough, or what do you think it is? Do you think it's the environment, or do you think it's him? There's a lot of
Uh,
people that are saying
go
it's
on.
it's kind of him. He's just not playing well enough, or is it that the group of players that he's playing around are just not good enough, and he doesn't have that consistency? What do you think it is?
If everybody plays at their best level, Thomas Partey is our best player, head and shoulders above everybody, in my opinion, by quite some way. I don't see another player who is potentially world class in their position than cheers to AO, by the way. I personally don't feel like there's anybody that comes near. I think he is an outstanding talent. The problem I've got with Thomas Partey is one thing, and it's simple: fitness. He hasn't been fit since he's come to Arsenal, and that's worrying more than his form for me, because he wasn't fit against Liverpool at Anfield. He was terrible because of his fitness, and he's had a couple of games like that where I think that we've had to use him because we've got lack of options. We've been left paper thin in the midfield area, and we're going to be even more paper thin when the African Cup of Nations comes. So again, that's why me and you have been saying we need to strengthen both the centre midfield and also the centre forward. So with Thomas Partey, he looked all right under Diego Simeone, didn't he? At Atletico Madrid, because he was surrounded by quality and he had an unbelievable manager. I don't think that he's surrounded by quality anymore and he hasn't got an unbelievable manager. So I think that's definitely going to affect your performance. Now, some players that are world class, it doesn't matter where they play, who they play against, who they play with, and what their manager is, they're always going to perform. So Thomas Partey isn't world class, but I think that he is probably the only player we've got that has the potential to be world class. So I think it's not him. I think it is definitely the surroundings, the Premier League, getting used to that. It's a different league to the Liga, 100%. But when he has played his best, he's been one of the best players on the pitch. And I feel like, in the North London derby, just where he was outstanding and Granit Xhaka
Mm-hmm.
was outstanding, why do you think people said Granit Xhaka was outstanding ahead of Thomas Partey? Because he's not normally outstanding. So it stands out more. Thomas Partey is typically good, so when he has an outstanding game, people just accept it or expect it because we bought him for 50 million and he's the player that's ready. He's the ready-made star. He's the one to take us forward. So we're not very good as fans of saying, do you know what, how good was Thomas Partey? We're quite good at saying how bad was Thomas Partey, because when he has a bad game from a performance, it stands out because actually, wow, he's had a bad game. When Granit Xhaka has a bad game, everyone just accepts it because he has a bad game most weeks. So the way I see it moving forward is that Thomas
That made me
Partey
laugh.
needs to be in this midfield and he needs to be the future. And I know that he's 28 or 29, so he's not a long-term future. But we need more Thomas Parteys around with a Thomas Partey head and experience on him, because we've got a lot of 25 years and younger players. We need the 26, 7, 8s to come into this team and take them forward. And that's not what we're seeing from the likes of Lacazette and Aubameyang, but we are seeing it from Thomas Partey in the central midfield. I think sometimes we overlook how much work he has to do in that midfield sometimes as well. He's babysitting Lokonga, then he's trying to work next to Xhaka to stop him getting absolute nonsense that he does. Then he's trying to stop El Neni from passing it sideways and backwards. Next time he's next to Danny Ceballos all last season, who's just a terrible footballer, really. I mean, what's he done since he's gone from Arsenal? Thomas Partey needs a partner. Once we get a Frank Kessie in, once we get a Basuma type figure in, you'll see an unbelievable player. This guy is the real deal, and I think we'll see that towards the end of the season. As long as he stays fit, fingers crossed he does.
Thank you, Dad. Thank you. I've been fighting in the Thomas Partey wars for so long. Thank you. Did you guys hear that? I'm gonna clip that. I'm gonna clip that. He is great. Like, I don't get why people are looking at him and thinking, well, maybe he isn't good. Do you see who he's playing next to day in and day out? And most players, even some of the world class ones, need certain players around them to do well. Like, a very good example of that is Pogba. He needs Conte next to him to be good. Like, that's literally what it is. He needs
Mhm.
somebody like that sweeping up next to him. Partnerships are important. Yo-Yo in the comments always talks about it. And personally, for me, Thomas Partey just needs consistency. He needs to stay fit. But if he had more of, like you said, a Basuma figure next to him, he'd do a lot better. My reluctancy to like be excited about it though comes from seeing that we were very heavily linked to Locatelli over the summer, heavily linked to Neves.
Mm-hmm.
They are not Basuma Kessié types. That kind of leaves us back into the Granit Xhaka type of thing where it's more of a slow, deep lying playmaker. So we may never get the best out of Thomas, and that just might be what the club is willing to do. It's to sacrifice his best years to put together a pivot that suits them. But let's give Thomas Partey a minute. Like, he never comes back well after injuries ever, and he's playing next to like players that, I mean, he's carrying everybody that he has to play next to. With Xhaka, he has to hold his hand. With Sambi, he has to hold his hand. So let's just give him a minute. Cliff, thank you so much for your super chat. Cliff says Thomas needs everyone around him to do his job. If that happens, no one better at AFC. Thomas needs everyone around him to do his job. But if he has to do more than he should, he looks suspect. Well, everybody has a role in a team. And I think that, you know, to ask a player to run the midfield all by himself is not only unrealistic, but like wrong. And so, yeah, he's best at doing what he's supposed to be doing. When you ask him to do the defending and the ball progressing and the passes in between the lines and the pressing and the assists and the goals, of course you're not going to get a great Thomas Partey. But if you put him in a role that's his role and he can do it the best, he's the best at that role. So yeah, I don't really know many players that can do absolutely everything in midfield unless you're Vieira. And Vieira was a world-class stunner. Like, you know, so I think it's a little bit unfair. I hear what you're saying, that he can't do more than one job, but most players in a system that works does a very specific and efficient job that they're best at to get the best out of them. Most players are, when they're asked to do so many different things, they don't do it well. You know, I think that that's kind of where I sit on that one, but I hear you. Banky asks, cheeky, unpopular question. Would you guys consider Vlahovic as striker and also take Jesse Lingard as a creative goal-scoring midfielder in January? Well, you answered the Vlahovic one, so yes for you on Vlahovic, but Jesse Lingard,
Not for me.
not a
Not
fan.
for me.
Not a fan.
Not for me. I think we can upgrade on that position. I don't think Jesse Lingard, as much as he's done well at West Ham when he went there on loan, and he's actually a hard worker. To be fair to Lingard, he's got a good shot on him. I don't think he'd fit into our system whatsoever. I think work rate rise he probably would, but I don't think that his positioning or his link up play is good enough in my opinion. I think he's one of those. Do you know what I hate in football, Jess? I hate number 10s, and that's what I think he is. I hate number 10s. The number 10s are just dead in football. They're just, no one plays them. They're always now attacking 8s or a 6 and 2 attacking 8s. Or a second striker now. It's never a number 10, and Jesse Lingard is a number 10. That's my biggest worry about Martin Odegaard, if I'm honest with you. I think he's a number 10, and I don't really want to see a number 10 in the team. So I would go Vlahovic, but not Jesse Lingard for me. I'd look at Husam Aouar ahead of him, 100%.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the like traditional number 10, so I hear you on that one. But before we get out of here, what's your prediction on the game on Thursday? Win, loss, draw? What's the score line? What do you think is going to happen?
So I'm going to go 1-1. I will only accept no, I won't be accepting no losses at this game. Trust me. Personally, it's got to be a win, but I believe it will be a draw. I feel like probably both teams will cancel each other out. I expect to see a similar game to the Chelsea game, actually. I think it will probably be a couple of mistakes in it, but there'll also be a lot of possession play from both sides. So I expect it to be 1-1. Cristiano Ronaldo is going to score, because he always does against Arsenal. And I'm going to go and keep faith in Aubameyang, because I have been a bit harsh on the lad. And I feel like a goal is due. So I'm going to go for Aubameyang and Ronaldo 1-1.
I would bite your hand off for that right now.
Yeah.
If that's what happened. Like literally, I would take a draw. Like I'm so like, you know, but because the games when the schedules come out, the first games I look for are Man United and the Liverpool game away, because I hate playing against Liverpool. We've gotten that nightmare over with. couple weekends ago, and now this is my second nightmare, is playing Man United. I just can't. They are the rivals that I can't stand. Like, so it's just but we'll definitely see what happens. But Dan, can you let everybody know where they can find you and what's going on with you? And like build up for the game. Do you guys have match reactions? What are you guys up to?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. Thanks to everyone in the chat. It's been great interaction. Great to see you all watching. So please smash the like button on this video first and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. If you would like to follow me on social media, I'm not the most active, if I'm honest with you, because I do this more for fun. However, if you do want to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, it's at DanArsenal87. And I am one of the co-hosts on Lead Judges TV. So me and Lead Judges run a channel together. And tonight at 9 o'clock, funnily enough, we've got myself, Lee, Kevin Campbell, and Sophie Rico from Man United talking about the Man United preview more in full. So if you do want to head over there at 9 o'clock, then head over to Lead Judges TV. If you can hit a like on the video and subscribe, Lee would be very, very happy. So that would be great if you guys are up for it. But thank you so much for being kind in the chat, and thank you, Jess, for having me on.
Thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. So you guys, Dan just said that they will be on Lead Judges TV at 9 p.m. for your preview, right? And then you guys can come back over here at 10 because me and George will be on talking tactics for a little bit of the Newcastle game, a little bit of Rangnick, what should we expect from him in a short tenure as Manchester United manager, / what he's going to be doing when he goes upstairs after the season ends. And this is Tactical Tuesday, our usual jam on Tuesday. So make sure you guys come back at 10 p.m. UK time. But before that, go to Lead Judges TV for their preview for the Manchester United game. Thank you guys so much. There's about 160 of you guys still watching. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, all of that great and wonderful stuff. And I'll see you guys later.